Greetings today. We begin a new message in the series on the book of Jude from Jude verse 9. It's entitled Earnestly Contending Without Being Earnestly Contentious. Jude 9 says, Yet Michael the archangel, when contending with the devil, he disputed about the body of Moses, durst not bring against him a railing accusation, but said, The Lord rebuke thee. Verse 10 continues, But these speak evil of those things which they know not, but that which they know naturally as brute beast, and those things they corrupt themselves. Now verses 9 and 10 of Jude stand as the amplification of the message of Jude 8. It amplifies by giving the positive example of Michael, and it amplifies verse 10 by contrasting the negative example of these who do the things of Jude verse 8. So let's look at the positive example in Jude 9 concerning Michael's action. It says, But the particular archangel Michael, when disputing with the devil he was arguing concerning the body of Moses, he, Michael, dared not to bring against or pronounce against the devil a condemnation of blasphemy, but he said, Lord, he might wish to rebuke you. The articular angel disputing, this word means to take issue with. Or as we have entitled the message, he was earnestly contending without being earnestly contentious. Michael dared not pronounce a judgment of blasphemy even against the devil himself or Satan. Rather, Michael was saying, without the article, we call that anathoros, emphasizing essence, Lord rebuke to you. He uses the optative mood here, probably one of the weaker ones and least used, which expresses that Michael was simply reminding Lucifer that the possibility existed that the Lord would rebuke him for his actions in this matter. Not a certainty by the indicative mood, not a probability by the subjunctive mood, not a matter of volition by the imperative, but simply a wish by means of the optative. So Satan's actions are juxtaposed against those of Michael, when the devil was arguing for himself about the body of Moses. And I think it's noteworthy here that we take note that the conflict was not over the soul and spirit of Moses, rather the conflict was over his body. Now Luke 16:22 tells us that the angels carried Lazarus to Abraham's bosom, that is paradise. And of course we know this was referring to the soul and spirit without the body of Lazarus. Likewise, Luke 16:23 states that the rich man died, and in hell he lifted up his eyes in torment. Again, that would be his soul and spirit without the body, because it plainly states that his body was buried. So how did this man's soul and spirit get transported to hell? And in a broader question, how do all souls and spirits of anyone get transported to hell? Would they not also be carried there by the angels? If such be the case, and I believe it is, it was not an unusual occurrence for both sides to be present at death to claim the soul and spirit and take it to its proper abode. However, what is stressed in Jude verse 9 concerning Moses' death is the fact that the devil was contending for Moses' body that had been left behind, that which was going to be secretly buried by God. Deuteronomy 34:5 teaches us this. It says, So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord. And he, that is God, buried him, that is Moses, in a valley in the land of Moab, over against Beth Peor. But no man knoweth of his sepulchre unto this day. While we're not told the evil purposes behind Satan's desire, some have supposed that Satan wanted to preserve it and deceive Israel into worshiping the body of Moses, like they later did with the brazen serpent. It's also possible that Satan wanted to do violence to the body as a spectacle to discredit Moses' character posthumously. But the reason why Satan was disputing about the body is not the main thrust and not something that's disclosed. The simple fact was that Satan was arguing for something that was not his. The fact is that he was in the wrong in the dispute. Even though Satan was wrong, Michael had no right to pass judgment, and therefore he did not pass judgment upon the devil. Passing judgment is a right reserved exclusively for God. The main emphasis of Jude 9 is upon how Michael did the right thing in the right way. Michael was earnestly contending without being earnestly contentious. This is an important admonition for us because the same exact participle used to describe Michael in verse 9 is used again in verse 22, where the participle is describing our disputing against whom? Against whoever. And the antecedent for whom is found in verse 19. These be they who separate themselves, sensual, not having the Spirit. That is, when we dispute, when we take issue with those who are taking issue with our holy walk, we're not to bring a judgment of blasphemy against them. Rather, and on the contrary, we're to be merciful unto them. I'll close today with this simple statement. It's a sad thing when the average Christian faces opposition to himself, when he's trying to serve God faithfully, that very often the first resort is the condemnation of the antagonist.